So, Good Trade Coffee Company is serving coffee but with an impact. We have the co founder Brandon with us today. Thanks for joining in, Brandon.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me.
So, selling coffee, but being a social enterprise at the same time. How exactly, how exactly are you balancing these two aspects at Good Trade Company?
That's a great question. We constantly hold those two things in tension.
Okay.
The real reason we started our coffee company was around the social impact that we wanted to see.
Mm-hmm.
So, our goal is to see communities around coffee kind of being empowered. So whether that's like financially, like economically, or socially, we want to
Mm-hmm.
see some empowerment happen. And so when we think about all of the coffee selling activities that we do here in Canada, it needs to serve the purpose of the social impact that we want to see.
Mm-hmm.
So, right now, there's myself and four other business partners, and each one of us has our own area of responsibility. And so, my main goal day to day is to focus on the business development, selling coffee, developing our coffee shops. But I always kind of have to keep in mind the desired outcomes, and so and part of that is easy because um, keeping track of our outcomes and the work that we do helps me tell the story here in Canada, which also helps me develop the business. It helps me, in sales or in my marketing, Facebook
Right.
and Instagram stuff too.
Yeah.
So it's always a kind of things that it's a good tension, it's a good balance to be thinking
Mhm.
of, and no matter what area you're focusing on, what area of the business you're focusing on.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I would like to, dive a bit deeper into how you got started. You touched upon that a bit, and you mentioned that it started with the social impact first, and then
Yeah.
you took that as a foundation and built on top of that. So how did you guys, come together and build this from the ground up?
Like most kind of founder stories, it seems pretty disjointed,
Uh-huh.
but at the same time, kind of interesting. I
Uh-huh.
used to run a homeless shelter here in Calgary. It was about 400 beds,
Mm-hmm.
and saw firsthand, what local poverty issues were, and how
Right.
to alleviate poverty at a local level. And well, I did that for about 8 years, and it was exciting. I enjoyed my job and the impact that we made. Um, but at the end of the day, I sort of felt that the traditional nonprofit model, where you were picking the pockets of the same donors every single year, was
Right.
challenging.
Mm-hmm.
I, you know, it's a very expensive model to run, and um, uh, so I felt kind of found this social enterprise idea sort of interesting, and
Mm-hmm.
so I kind of had percolated on that idea for a few years, and I ended up hiring a guy to be one of my managers,
Okay.
and he's from Colombia, and he turned into my business partner Guillermo.
Mm-hmm.
And together, he being from Colombia and knowing a lot more about Colombia, we just chatted, we just talked, and I
Right.
learned a lot. I dug into it, realized a lot of some of the numbers, the kind of the nerdy data stuff that I really love, and
Mm-hmm.
just saw the need. How in coffee and in other products in Colombia, like they produce a lot of flowers. There's also a lot of quinoa, a lot of cocoa, a lot of other potatoes is another big product. And so all of those have a lot of poverty, especially at the marginalization at the
Mm-hmm.
producer level.
Mm-hmm.
And so our original idea was to just go to Colombia, have a look around, see what we could do.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought about potatoes. So we started digging into it. Our thoughts were maybe we could hire some vulnerable people to uh, pro- uh, we would purchase potatoes, and then we'd clean them, slice them up, package them, and sell them at the local market.
Mm-hmm.
Something small, thinking like that. But apparently, potatoes are quite a volatile market, and the price goes up and down really dramatically. It's really hard to build a business
Yeah.
around.
Mm-hmm.
So then we talked to some of our connections and found that the need in coffee was really huge. There's there's about 600,000 farming families in coffee alone in Colombia. So, well over a million people. And
Mm-hmm.
about 60% of them live below the world's poverty line. So you get
Uh-huh.
these people that are making, 350 US dollars a month or so, and
Mm-hmm.
it it's not a sustainable lifestyle. So a lot of challenges there, and we were reluctant to get into coffee because neither Guillermo or I know anything about coffee, or did not know anything about coffee.
Right.
We didn't. Neither of us had pulled an espresso shot until about a week before we opened our first coffee shop, and
Okay.
and it was in this coffee by necessity. We knew that
Yeah.
we wanted to have impact, and we knew that we wanted to go and do this model that wasn't donations. It was built around a solid business model,
Mm-hmm.
for profit model, and we um, yeah, we just started pulling espresso shots at a small little coffee shop and sorry, um, a farmer's market here in Calgary called Crossroads Market. It's a little 100
Uh-huh.
square foot, 10-foot by 10-foot booth, and that's kind of where we cut our teeth. But somewhere along the line there, Guillermo kind of got introduced to our other three partners who had run a shiitake mushroom co-op in
Okay.
Colombia. So there was, already kind of bringing together these people who had a deep interest in creating impact through social entrepreneurship. It was just really great timing that we all were looking at the same time,
Okay.
um,
Okay.
and we, like I said, got into coffee as just a necessity, and it's become an obsession now. But I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Yeah, it's an inspiring story. I mean, you make it sound like things just fell into place, but I'm sure like it would
No.
have been challenging. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah. And in your supply chain, so as you are dealing directly with these farmers in Colombia, what steps as a company are you taking? Do you know, like alleviate poverty there and help these farmers and
Mhm.
in turn, build a more ethical and inclusive supply chain.
That was one of those questions that just sort of naturally came up as we were
Hmm.
just trying to bring coffee to Canada. I think,
Hmm.
if I had some advice to anybody who was thinking about, purchasing a commodity and bringing it to their country is, um, you don't have to have it all figured out. Just start diving in, and then some of those questions will naturally pop up.
Hmm.
Like for us, it was, we need in order to make this work, we have to have revenue. We need to bring in coffee beans. So we started looking into it. And originally we wanted to import it all ourselves. It would be all in house, that I guess we'd source it, do all the logistics, import it, roast it, and everything. And um, while that is still a long-term goal of ours, what we ended up doing was partnering with someone who has a much uh, better logistic uh, expertise in
Hmm.
logistics, and who shares our values. So Jeff at Apex Coffee Imports, based out of Calgary here too, um, really shares our values. So he, um, makes sure that the coffee that we purchase, he does basically all of the logistics on our behalf, and we purchase directly through him.
Right.
And that allows us to focus on the social impact that we're creating in Colombia. Because as a small business, a startup, you want to take this large bite out of these issues, but you realize that it's really like the small ones that actually work.
Yeah.
So we were able to focus on the social impact, and then on the business development, the sales here in Calgary, while Jeff and his team focus on the logistics of bringing the coffee and finding some sources and
Right.
importing it.
Hmm.
So that was a big thing for us, finding the right person who was willing to pay the right price for the coffee to make sure that the farmers were receiving a fair price.
Hmm.
And when you look at things like fair trade prices, and you
Hmm.
see, um, it is good to have some sort of regulation around it. It's still not enough. It's like minimum
Hmm.
wage. Here's the minimum that you should be paying. But we
Right.
believe that a farmer should be rewarded for their sweat and expertise, not just getting minimum wage,
Hmm.
which is essentially what fair trade price is. So we looked far and wide and found a logistics partner, and that was really important. And the other part is just um, of our social impact is our education initiatives. So,
Right.
so our company is built around that. We wanted to work direct with farmers for that economic impact, to make sure that they could sell their products, distribute their products, maybe develop more sustainable products if they were
Mm-hmm.
moving from an older, more high production method to a newer, where high quality was their focus instead of just
Yeah.
lots of production.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one thing. But the next part is, what's the long term impact? Money's great, but
Mm-hmm.
long term impact we thought would be education.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to help the farmer's family and their community by offering uh, like tailored education programs that are based around life skills. So things
Okay.
that you learn, um, you don't typically learn from a school. Things like
Mm-hmm.
conflict resolution or empathy or risk management. What do you do if if you're approached by nefarious people, to join their cause,
Mm-hmm.
and how do you protect yourself and your family? How do
Mm-hmm.
you stay engaged and inspired in education when you've got militia groups that have really cool things going for them, like uh, uniforms or technologies or
Mm-hmm.
guns or sense of belonging? How do you bring inspiration and the cool factor to education, which
Mm-hmm.
has which is always better for a community?
Mm-hmm.
So COVID has sort of thrown a big giant wrench into everything, but we've been delivering Zoom um, things with teachers, different educators, parents. We've been going direct to parents and students as well. For a while there, it was just WhatsApp. We were texting directly with
Yeah.
parents who wanted to be in contact with us and just get support on their
Right.
education for their kids. To us, the business side of it, where we're bringing beans, is the necessary part of it
Mm-hmm.
in order to fund the social impact. So
Right.
I think that's the future of business. I think that's where
Mm.
it's all going.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Some of the great points like that you mentioned just now, I wanted to highlight. First is around partnerships. I mean, like you don't have to do all the good things yourself.
Yeah,
Like if you can find the right partners who are already doing it, it just makes a lot of business sense to, just
yeah,
do it along with them. And secondly, around teaching life skills, I think everyone should be taught that in schools now. So
hmm
not just educating these kids, but educating them with something that would really come in handy in their day-to-day life. I think that's really thoughtful. So,
yeah.
so kudos to you on doing that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's one of those things that again you stumble into when you
Mm,
start diving into your idea.
mm,
You
right.
you can make a hypothesis and dive in, and we thought originally that just helping teachers be more effective teachers would be the best
Right.
way to go.
Mm-hmm.
But we realized that these students, these communities are dealing with over 6 decades of different levels of conflict within these regions, with
Okay.
it, whether that's
Yeah.
like the FARC or paramilitary groups. Uh, so you get 60 years of just lack of trust and these
Right.
certain types of development that aren't happening in these communities.
Mm-hmm.
So once you dive in, you see where you can help, and I think what we try to do that's important also is to we call it like having Colombians helping Colombians. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
us, myself. I'm the only white person on the team actually,
Okay.
uh, but it's not myself as a white person helicoptering in and solving the world's
Yeah.
problems,
Mm-hmm.
which we've been very sensitive about.
Mm-hmm.
It's about having giving knowledge and expertise to people to help themselves and help their community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think empowering them is like a great initiative. I think that's the key.
Mhm.
Great. And Brandon, I'm sure like this journey wouldn't have been easy. It would have come with its own set of challenges. So, what were
Yeah.
some of the biggest ones that you faced, and which could also serve as an advice for new age entrepreneurs that are just getting started with something new?
For our business, and actually just speaking candidly for
Mm-hmm.
myself, the one of my biggest challenges, biggest hurdles was learning how to operate in two different cultures. Um,
Mm.
Canadian business culture is fast paced and
Right.
you expect results. Colombian culture is not like that. It's
Mm-hmm.
they definitely can be very results oriented, but it's not the same timeline. And I think what I had to realize very early on, if I'm honest, is just that my way of doing things wasn't right. Just
Mm.
because it was the way that I had grown up doing it. We have this theory, I guess, maybe this subconscious idea that our North American ways of doing things are the right way to do things.
Right. Uh-huh.
Um, but it's not, and I had to really learn how to work in this tension between two cultures and
Mm-hmm.
two ways of doing business. And it's
Mm-hmm.
still kind of a struggle that I deal with, when little silly things like setting up a meeting and it's starting 45 minutes late,
Mm-hmm.
or knowing the way things are done here in Canada when it comes to taxes and um, you know, doing say year end type things. In Colombia, we have a company here, right in Canada. We have two companies, a for profit and a nonprofit, and then we have
Okay.
an arm of our nonprofit in Colombia, and it of
Mm-hmm.
course has to do year ends and all that sort of jazz. And it's just completely different. It's not the same. And so you
Mm-hmm.
assume because this is the way it works here in Canada, it should work that way down there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big learning curve for us. But just relax,
Mm-hmm.
giving myself some space
Yeah.
and grace to navigate these new things was really important.
Right. Right. Right.
Um, I think one of the other challenges is was just I think what everyone else faces, and that's just cash flow. When you've
Mm-hmm.
got a social mission attached to it, it's not just money going into pay dividends to the shareholders or whatever. You have a social initiative that requires capital to run. We made a commitment really early on that we would do our best to fund all of our initiatives direct from our for-profit activities. And
Mm-hmm.
as we've grown, we've seen opportunities to take advantage of, say, public or private funds as well. But we really wanted to ensure that our business model would work just as a true social enterprise where the money we make goes towards
Mm-hmm.
our impact. Um, and I think that was a challenge, just making sure we were staying on top of our cash and using it
Mm-hmm.
wisely, growing at a pace that was sustainable, not only in our business, but also in our business relationships with our
Mm-hmm.
suppliers, with the schools. It was really important that it wasn't, your typical, 10x tech sort of growth, but it's one
Right.
that's sustainable because we have a lot of relationships on the line
Yeah.
too. It's
Mm.
not just the business idea.
Mm.
Yeah, I think those are two pretty large
Okay.
hurdles for us, and there's
Yeah.
still challenges to this day.
Yeah. 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 No, I can understand. Yeah, but it's really important to, I think, unlearn and then keep relearning things on the go. I think there's a lot of unlearning also that needs
Oh
to
yeah,
happen. Okay.
yeah,
And lastly, Brandon, I wanted to understand, what lies ahead for you guys. Like if we talk about next 2 to 3 years in terms
yeah.
of your products, markets, or like building a more robust supply chain on the social impact side. So
hmm
what can we expect in this time period?
Hmm. You know, the the immediate future looks like another coffee shop. We're
Hmm.
already,
Right.
looking at our financing and thinking about where we'll build our third coffee shop.
Hmm.
Um, and I think maybe before that is making sure that we can make it through this COVID thing.
Right. Yeah.
But so far, we're doing really well, and we're really hopeful for the future. And I
Hmm.
think that now is a good time for us to grow and maybe take some advantage of some of the opportunities of good retail space and maybe negotiating some um, good leases or loans with good interest rates.
Hmm.
So we're definitely looking for that third coffee shop. Um, we're reaching out and developing our wholesale programs too here in
Hmm.
Canada. That has been one that's been hit pretty hard, I think, across the board. A lot of offices aren't back working yet, and so their coffee consumption has gone down a lot, or other big groups and events aren't meeting. So
Yeah.
the whole that, but grocery store sales are typically up across the board for coffee,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
we're investing into that, and that's kind of our sales stuff. On
Mhm.
our social impact, it's kind of the funny one of where the opportunity is endless, and I think anyone who runs a social enterprise based on helping people with their needs, it realizes the opportunity to support and help is just completely endless.
Right.
We once we launched our first program in a town called Chachahui in Nariño, Colombia, we immediately were reached out to by the Ministry of Education, and we're like, how do we replicate this? How do we take what you're doing and bring it to other places?
Nice.
And while that's great, it just, at the same time, we can't outgrow or outpace
Mhm.
the amount of the funding that we need to do these initiatives.
Right.
So for us, the growth there is actually a little bit easier than here it is in Canada. So for us, we're running a few pilot projects with some new material that we're launching, different modules, and some needs assessments for some new communities, um, and just kind of uh, yeah, trying not to grow too fast, actually,
Right.
which is kind of weird
Yeah.
to say, but
Mhm.
definitely being cautious, because again, like our
Yeah.
relationship capital there is so important.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. Great insights, Brandon, and thanks a lot for sharing all of them. It's such a great such a great company that you're building, at your own pace, and taking care of the important aspects, and not just growing the coffee side of the business, but maintaining that balance between coffee and the social impact. I think that's the key. So kudos to you
thank you.
on that. Yeah, and thanks a lot again for joining us, and sharing all those great insights.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks again for spending some time and having me on. Really appreciate it.